All right, you guys, it is that time of the set where we go through the dev learnings posted by Riot Mort. It's where Riot talks about everything they learned about set 12 from the design, balance, and everything about TFT. And so I will do my best to do this in one shot. A reflection on Magic and Mayhem with our director of game design, Riot Mort. Oh, they full named him. With just over 2 weeks left in Magic and Mayhem, it's time to share some learnings we've been discussing with the set. We'll chat about the highs like our favorite charms and lows like Release Syndra. Whew. These are always in-depth articles for our deepest thinkers and most enthusiastic tea sippers. What did he call me? So brew a cup and let's unpack the anomaly that is TFT's design. TLDR, we're going to dive deeper into our learnings from the following topics. Set theme. The upbeat creativity of Magic Mayhem was a ton of fun, but with Into the Arcane, we'll be staying true to the show as possible. Oh, actually, I have a... As you guys remember, I have a giant... This is like bigger than my torso. I have a giant Arcane box that, according to this note, I'm not supposed to open until November 6th. So, I don't want to get in trouble, but it says don't open until November 6th. Maybe I'll open it tomorrow on stream. So expect something way more arcane than gizmos and gadgets. Charm. There were a lot of positive Magic Mayhem's set mechanic for us to learn from. In this section, we'll dig into what we liked about Charm, so how we've adjusted them so far in the set, and why we won't they necessarily be sticking around. Well, yeah, of course. Projects, the quarter set. Projects like 14.18's Majors patch, informally dubbed the quarter set, emerge out of a desire to improve our game and respond to feedback in a timely fashion that isn't tied to a schedule like mid-sets were. With this patch, we want to roll out some content outside of a big release so we can take more time to digest it. I mean, this was the patch that reworked Fairy, if you guys remember. They reworked Fairy, they reworked Ash, Wukong, Smolder, a bunch of units. Did a huge balance patch. They'll review that. Patch release Syndra. This is where we'll discuss one of our biggest misses of the sets. Read this one to find out just how and why Syndra happened. Give this dense and a bit vulnerable section to read. Okay, wow. Bit vulnerable. I love when Mordog gets vulnerable with me. Champion augments. They're at the best when they're fundamentally change how a champion is played, but also when they're relatively narrow and are only pick when you have the proper setup. We'll take what we learned from Magic and Mayhem's champion augments into the next set. High stakes augments. Altogether, high stakes augments, upgraded adventurer, golden egg, etc. were a mixed success, but we're proud to have tried something this bold. And we'll be taking some successes here into the future. As for Into the Arcane, we'll have a high stakes trait. Okay, so Fortune's coming back, or at least something like Fortune-like trait. And I actually think things like Golden Quest was actually quite fun, but it was too OP. Actually, you know what's the best high stakes augment this set? Trait Tracker. I think Trait Tracker was really, really fun. Portals. We're moving away from portals in favor of a different solution that provides game-to-game variants with more instances of good variants versus annoying ones. I heard about this. Is the only thing that I heard and was spoiled for me yesterday before I read this today. I heard that they're moving away from portals, so no more portals in set 13. I wonder what they're gonna do instead. Reroll versus Fast 8. It's still our goal that champions of all costs have avenues to win games, but we need to change some of our power frameworks upon examining the current risk and rewards of each one. Okay. That is true. And then Talker's Trials is coming back for the first patch of Into the Arcane. This time, Talker's Trials will be more of an onboarding mode for players to experience a new set in a low-pressure environment. Yeah, I remember. They actually said that Talker's Trials is going to be for new players or for people who haven't played TFT in a while and not for like players who know how to play the game. That's kind of a disappointment for me, but I get it. It's because they expect Arcane to be a big moment for new players to TFT, and they want to give them something that they can do to learn the set. And yeah, like Talker's Trials, to be honest, as an engaged player, I played it like 5, 6, 7 times, and I had fun, but I stopped playing it. Those people might play Talker's Trials like a lot. Set theme. In the past, we've been writing these articles with the input of our design team, but with our last set, the art and theme were so important, we just had to talk about it. With Magic and Mayhem, we're in a similar boat. So for this section, we'll have our gameplay art director here go over just how the theme came together and how it landed. From the calming Eastern fantasy-inspired setting of Inkborn Fables to the hectic and goofy chaos of Magic and Mayhem, we ventured between two completely different fantasy settings in our past sets. Here are some of our takeaways from Magic and Mayhem's theme. The theme of Magic and Mayhem was one of our most fun to work on from an art perspective. We leaned heavily into the thematic for things like the Magitorium setting and our carousel, which was the most intertwined with gameplay yet. It was set in the Magitorium Castle's courtyard, and each alcove represented its own origin. Wait, did you guys realize that? Like, these are all the trades? Oh, Honeymancy. Oh. I did not I did not connect that. Oh. The whimsical setting allows us to get creative with, yeah, like what, so like this is this is Honeymancy. One of these, this is like one of them is Portal. One of them's like Witchcraft, I guess. This is like Eldritch. We also brought in Nora from Legends of Runeterra to surprise players. All this was balanced out by more recognizable magics like Witchcraft, Pyro, Frost, and even the wand-like structure of charms. Okay. I could have fooled me. I wish they told me that earlier. I would have appreciated it. I do agree. The carousel and the setting of the theme setting this set was really, really good. The theme made for a perfect debut of our mechanic charms, because what's more magical than a tiny wand following your tactician around? We'll dig into the design of charms and how they landed in a section later on. We try to put our unique spin on it and a well-established and understood themes across our vast IP. The reception of our thematic for Magic and Mayhem was mixed depending on who you asked and where they were answering from. Thematically, traits like Honeymancy and Sugarcraft brought out the whimsical and cutesy side TFT is known for. Still, we had some feedback that we over-indexed on that. For example, our only edgy dark trait was Eldritch. For some players, we lacked the more traditional magics like Frost or Pyro, but then there was a subset of players who loved the less traditional parts of Magic and Mayhem, and we love that for you. This all goes to show that thematics can be tricky, so while we can't promise every set theme will be your next favorite theme, we can promise to continue pushing into new thematic territory that's at times as fun and unexpected as others, as enjoyable as it is known and nostalgic. Lastly, if the theme of Magic and Mayhem wasn't quite for you, just read a little further. With Into the Arcane, we're leaning heavily into authentically representing Arcane while remaining true to TFT's core. Where Gizmos and Gadgets was a more casual homage to Piltover and Zon, Into the Arcane will be taking things directly from the show in both theme and gameplay. Bat chest. So that means that the next set will be like kind of serious and more adult themed. Okay, maybe that sounds kind of graphic. I meant more like it's just like less peppy and less like Sugarcraft Gwen baking me a cake as the cutscene, you know? Because I do agree, like, this was supposed to be a little bit spooky, but it ended up being kind of silly. I remember I was told by Ride that they were originally going for like a Harry Potter vibe, but I think they came out with like Scooby-Doo meets Casper the Ghost type of Halloween. TFT NSFW. I don't think that's what they're saying. I think they're saying like they're gonna try to make it like less about always the fun whimsical stuff and much more about like, okay, like that's kind of messed up. All right, we'll see. Charms. Magic and Mayhem set mechanic worth like a charm. Let's talk about the pros for Charm. The mechanic had a relatively low impact, but was still fun to play. Charms synergized with our theme. Charms were relatively low complexity. Buy Charm, get power while still having a mastery curve. When to roll for Charms and new level limit. Agreed. That's my favorite part about Charms. That they were like easy. They were like generally simple a lot of the times, but they had actually like a big mastery curve. I appreciate that. Charms mostly had positive impact, not many cursed charms barring trade health for roll style charms, and all charms had full player agency. You control when to buy them. Somewhat subtly, charms help reduce set gold inflation, and Inkborn Fables certainly had with encounters. Yes, that's also a big thing. It did so by requiring you to spend gold to engage with the mechanic. We were able to continually add and subtract new charms, allowing us to improve and iterate on the mechanic consistently. Yes. That is actually one of my favorite things about charms, is that they actually could make the set feel different by releasing new charms and making you feel like each patch had a little bit of new content to interact with all the different comps and stuff. The last bullet is key here. If there was a negative charms, it was in some of the individual charms we shipped. For example, Desperate Plea and Summon Dragons were too strong on release, while Artifactinate was completely useless. Yes, yes, and yes again. We believe charms were an overall great addition to the game. That doesn't mean they should stick around. Like Galaxies Are Chosen, the best set mechanic should leave you wanting more. Well, I mean, they brought both of those back, so we'll see. Thumbs up from me. I like charms. The 14-18 quarter set. Patch 14-18 was certifiably huge. It was a culmination of many individual projects poured into one patch that we dubbed informally the quarter set. So let's talk about why we did, how it landed, starting at the very beginning. Low impact? They did, actually. Like, it It's like compared to encounters and legends and hero augments, I think charms might be my second favorite mechanic ever behind augments. And once they removed so a lot of the BS stuff, like yeah, okay, tremors and stuff exist late game, but I think charms are actually quite good. Anyways, a long time ago in World Set Away, TFT had midsets that delivered a big batch of changes midway through the set to freshen things up. One of the many reasons we got rid of midsets was that we didn't have to wait until a specific time to deliver changes that would instantly improve the game. We could just ship them in the soonest possible patch. So for our 14-18 core set, we shipped a bunch of changes that we've been working on across many different teams to further improve things we thought could be better, or just add more exciting new options for our most engaged players. Projects like the core set emerge out of a desire to improve our game and respond to your feedback. Okay, so they're bolding this because they want to say that it's like a really well-intentioned thing, which I don't think anyone confuses it as such. There's one more thing we want to add with 14-18 that we'd like to discuss, the golden frying pan. We've been working on adding craftable emblems for our class-based traits for a while now. We want to do it as a staggered, as not a full set release, since it brought so much change. The aim here is to roll out content in a more digestible way, sort of like we've done with new charms of each patch. Since the golden frying pan is a permanent addition to TFT, we saw the core set as a perfect time for its addition. Okay. Overall, we see the core set as a success, but it wasn't without its issues. Gwen and Wukong fell short. Oh yeah, dude, fell short. Gwen didn't do anything anymore. They turned Gwen into a unit that like she would try to evade and not take too much damage, but as a result would like only snip one unit, and she became an AoE champion into a single target. And it was so frustrating in late fights where she would just not kill things, even though it felt like it should. Not just because their power level, Gwen was far weaker on release, but because you had to relearn how to play them. Suddenly, Gargoyle and Swim Plate wasn't a good item on Wukong, and Bloodthirster wasn't a good item on Gwen. In the future, when we do reworks, we want to make sure you don't have to relearn the champion completely. Lastly, while Hecarim became a super fun and successful champion overnight, we shipped him with too much power, so we should be careful that our reworks don't end up working overtime. Yeah, they reworked Hecarim, and he was so busted. And then they reworked Gwen, and she was so useless. And because they spent so much time, they spent resources and time, right? Like doing these reworks, it's not like a simple thing. If they rework a champion, it's actually like something that takes a lot of time because the designer has to like tweak the code and how it actually works and a bunch of the AI stuff. It's not as simple as like, okay, well, this is just 5 AD, 5 AP. So it's a lot of resources that they invested into this. While there's some rougher parts to releasing so much new content at once, Shen's champion augments, Fairy being too strong, etc. 14-18 had a relatively smooth release given its scope, requiring a small B patch that we followed up with super fast. They did release the super fast. You know, I don't remember if it was a small B patch. I consider, okay, so I think they might be reevaluating a relatively smooth release. I think they're talking about how it didn't break the game because they introduced a lot of reworks, they introduced pans, but there were a lot of bugs. And they're like, do you guys remember that they accidentally coded pan as an item that you can get on carousel? So sometimes in stage 5 or stage 6, there were just 3 fawns, but like for only the people who were at the bottom. So 3 people got fawns, and then everyone else got like regular items. So there were definitely some rough parts. So yeah. I think they also bold to emphasize don't expect it every set. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right. Time to address the elephant in the room. Magic and Mayhem released with one champion that far and away outperformed the rest, even the other OPs like release Kassadin. As a champion, Syndra has a unique hook. She's a 2-cost with infinite ramping fantasy, making her need a bit of pain and balance as we need her to be slottable into comps where she isn't the focus, but also have her power ceiling be something that exists. She's a tough one, and we should be able to get her in a better spot on day 1. We messed up, but we also had a few factors working against us that we'll know how to work around for next time. Story time. All right. Magic and Mayhem goes to PBE, and in our first patch on PBE, we buff Syndra. Whoa. Mind you, this is already a Syndra that is way stronger than release Syndra. So let's call her Super Syndra. Kind of like Dragon Ball. Super Syndra rise this buff on our second week of PBE, where we're seeing her climb in the data, but not too much, mainly because we had different OP warping the PB data, Diana. Because Syndra wasn't in a Diana comp, who was insanely strong at the time, she didn't jump as significantly as we expected. On July 22nd, our PB patch gave her a small nerf as her comp had climbed to a 4.3 average in her data. Oddly enough, her go-to comp starts looking weirdly weak in the PB data after this. For our PB update on 24th, we give Super Syndra a more significant nerf, but we also fix a bug with her high attack speed build. This is important, just wait. Now it's the day before, one day, Magic and Mayhem goes live. We see Syndra performing very well in PB, despite players not building her optimally at the time. This is true. We weren't building Syndra correctly. We were building her like Sojin, Deathcat. Like we didn't build the attack speed on her. So we follow up with a nerf on the A patch, knowing that once we A patch something, we can no longer change that exact file once the patch goes live via a mid-patch update. So they've nerfed her 3 times now, just to give you a reference. Using her most common build on PB, Jewel Gauntlet, Shojin, and Nashor's Tooth, we sim Syndra and decided to nerf her about 6% total power, and Karma her go-to pair by a bit too. Now Super Syndra with a tiny band-aid hits live, and players immediately figure out that the best build was a build that wasn't played or working too well during most of PvE. Players gathered their bows, immediately optimizing something already powerful, and alas, Super Syndra enters our release patch, resistant to beat patches, and LP losses. Now, there's a few more factors in the story, but that's the gist of it. In hindsight, we could have waited for Syndra to go live instead of A-patching her to get better data for a more informed B patch. That's true. Or we could have done a B patch regardless that tries to band-aid a nerf file we didn't touch on Syndra. We should have done this 100%. Or nerf everything around her in her go-to comp. But there are pros and cons to those too. No A-patch Super Syndra would have resulted in an even stronger Syndra for the first 40 hours of the set. And a band-aid nerfing around Syndra would have made those items, augments, traits, champions unplayable in Syndra-less situations. That's right, because Syndra's so warping that you can only play around her. Nerfing Syndra via a file we didn't impact with the A-patch, which we should have done. He said this twice, by the way. He said we should have done this. We should have done this 100%, which we should have done. So he's acknowledging it, and I think that's important. Mort's trying to be accountable. Riot's trying to be accountable, saying like we should have done this. Had its complications. The meta was still young, and we weren't fully comfortable pulling the trigger on changes 2 days into a patch. But as we know, a counter Syndra did not emerge, and other comps did not rise to topple her. Anyways, we share this anecdote not to create an excuse. We messed up for Syndra, but to shed some light on how tricky game dev is in a live service game, especially one where balance is so core to gameplay. If you guys have forgotten, Syndra is the most broken 2 costs of all time. The release Syndra on set 12 will live in infamy. If there's one thing to remember from set 12 besides the mechanic, it's release patch Syndra. It's like basically up there with Warweek, with Void Sins from set 1, right? With the Draven patch from set 9. These are iconic moments. She was so incredibly busted. But this is the reality is that they A-patched her, which meant that they couldn't actually nerf her again. They should have done something, you know, on a file that they didn't touch on Syndra, which is true. But I think that there's 2 things I want to say about this. I think 1, this shows that how PBE is kind of fake at times, right? We weren't even playing the right items on PBE, and so if they're simming, right, they take these data, they'll input like what is popular, and they can sim. But everyone's like, how do they not catch this? Is because we weren't even playing the right versions of it, and there were other broken things. And it's very much as simple as they could have nerfed Syndra, but then there was another OP thing going on, right? Because the whole focus was on Diana. So PB is really, really hard to balance in general because of those factors. The second is supposedly Into the Arcane releases November 20th. Let me bring up the calendar here. Into the Arcane releases on November 20th. Today is November 5th. PB is not going to come out this week, so that means that we have a 1-week PB cycle for set 13, which is, yeah. We'll see. Mortdog apparently, someone, let's see, youtube.com, TFT clips. Someone said that Mortdog made a bet that there won't be a B patch for set 13 launch patch. I thought maybe he made a clip, but apparently made a $500 bet that it wouldn't happen. And I respect the balls of that. Where is it? Does someone have a link to the news? I want to see it. But that takes a lot. That takes a lot of stones. I will say that there's almost no upside because even if there's no B patch and Mortdog is completely spot on, I think people are still I think the people who are convinced Riot sucks at their job, fired the dev team, they're so bad, like more, and they're just being toxic about it. I don't think they're gonna be convinced and be like, you know what, you're right, I'm gonna leave you alone. I think they're just gonna like stay silent because they're anonymous. They don't have to. They're gonna play TFT, enjoy it, and their stance is gonna be like, good. That's what it should be, right? Like you're just doing your job. They're not gonna be like, you know what, we were wrong. I was wrong to be an asshole on the internet to you, Mortdog. I'm sorry. Your dev team is great. They're not gonna do that. But you have everything to lose because the downsides are really heavy. So it's a lot of balls to actually make this prediction. This is it? Okay. Hold on.
Confident in making the same bet about 13 you made about set 10? Yes. Yes. In fact, do you want this to be the official clip? Yes. I will give away $500 if we have to patch the first patch and it's not bug related.
Okay.
If it's balance related, I will give away $500.
That's it?
I am pretty confident in the next set.
That's it. And he takes off the hoodie. We'll see. 1 week of PBE, man. I mean, the bug-related stuff is what I'm most scared about in general. The quality of the set. As you guys know, balance is always an ebb and flow in TFT. I actually forgive balance changes pretty often. But I really, really, really don't like bugs. I just think it's a waste of time. And it's so frustrating when things don't work. Like when someone cashed out today in the China tournament, their upgraded adventure just is missing a support Thieves Gloves. It's just like, come on, man. All right, champion augments. Champion augments are at their best when they change how the champion is played fundamentally, but also when they are relatively narrow and are only picked when you have the proper setup, aka Regine's range by a tool when you see Deja Vu as an option. Some successful champion augments from the past are Time Knife Shen from Monsters Attack. That was a true damage Shen. That was really fun. Or Deja Vu Galio from this set, really. I wouldn't pick that as my successful champion augment, because they require not only changing your itemization, but also different positioning in a new composition. Okay. Where champion augments have not succeeded, we've learned a few things. Augments like Spin the Wind Wukong have taught us that if a champion augment doesn't switch up the build completely, it's not as dynamic as we'd like to see in a champion augment. Okay. It's all, I mean, my problem, okay, I'm going to let them finish. If a champion augment shifts a tank into a more damage-focused role, but also maintains the champion's tankiness, it creates a frustrating experience for opponents. This was the case of a few of our champion augments like Blitzcrank, Elise, and Nunu this set. While they were fun at times, they were generally too frustrating to reprint. Lastly, besides Monster Attack, which had champion augments as a core set mechanic, Magic and Mayhem was the first set to introduce champion augments for 1 cost and 3 costs, but they're not the focus here. This was a bold experiment because 1 cost champions come online at around stage 3-1, where the power is so strong that you can steamroll lobbies, but you're unlikely to succeed in the mid to late game. Except for that one patch, right? The hero augment patch. This wasn't the case for a few of our 1 cost augments that could carry even to stage 5. Oh, and beyond. Moving forward, we will be changing our approach to champion augments. All right. We'll be making 1 cost champion augments silver tier. We'll be making what? So hero augments are now silver tier. So they aren't as impactful in later stages. Okay, well, hero augments are confirmed back for next set. We're also going to continue 2 cost and even 3 cost champion augments. But we have one more extension to this area that we'll review at a later time. Let's just say it should team up with the rest of our augment learnings quite well. Okay, we have one more extension to this area that we'll reveal later time. Another big problem about these champion augments, specifically at 3 cost, was that it only happened on 3-2. And for Shen, for example, Shen's hero augment, I actually think Shen's hero augment has potential to be really fun, but because of where it's positioned, it's just too niche and not actually, like, I think that's like a fun potential augment, but I don't like where it's positioned relative to the game state and also to the augment. So I hope that they don't just put 3 cost champion augments at 3-2 that require you to be in the very specific situation at the very specific time, because that feels like it didn't live up to its potential. I don't have any of you guys picked Pillar of Flame even one time, and it's been 3 patches since? I don't think so. Like maybe like once if you guys were just like memeing. Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Isn't Deja Vu the perfect hero augment balance-wise? You know what? Now that I've seen how they framed it, I can get behind it. Like, it changed the way Galio played. It changed his positioning. It was a pretty unique. Yeah, it required certain items, so you couldn't just like always force it. Also, there's like natural balance levers in it because like Galio was naturally a popular unit, so he's kind of contested at times. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. I haven't even seen a person pick it in my games. Yeah, I mean, like, same. And I feel like that's not a good thing. Like, some people be like, yes, I don't want hero augments, right? But I want to actually see it. I think that's where it failed. Circumstances surrounding it. All right. High stakes augments versus high stakes traits. With Magic and Mayhem, we tried something experimental with the set structure. We shipped without a true high stakes trait for the first time since Reckoning, our 5th set. Instead, we designed several high stakes augments to ensure the set had enough of these risk it all for the highlight reel moments that players have come to love and expect. This experiment was a risk in itself. We'd be moving high stakes gameplay into a space where it's not forcible player who main that strategy. It would also be disconnected from the trait web, allowing for super open fort, intentionally empty or near empty board strategies. The reward for this risk was creating more unique cash outs and potentially opening up new ways to play high risk, except there were not as many unique cash outs as I probably were hoping. Altogether, this was a mixed success. Augments like Golden Quest, Upgrade Adventure, and Trait Tracker succeeded in creating super novel catch moments that require different types of high risk play. I agree. I loved Trait Tracker. I think that's one of my favorite augments this set. But augments like Fortune Favors the Bold just shipped a completely open fort version of Fortune without innovating much on a cash out. High stakes augments have to ship with enough risk for them to be exciting, which wasn't the case for augments like Fortune Favors the Bold and Golden Quest. These augments need higher stakes to get them to the point of something like Golden Egg. Regardless, we're proud to have tried this out and we'll take some successes here into the future. As for Into the Arcane, we will have a high stakes trait that's sure to create some highly illegal board states. Hooray! We did it. We get Fortune back, guys. Hooray. Love some high stakes trait. I love highly illegal board states. But I do agree that I do agree with everything, basically. I think it's a mixed success. I think that's fair. I really like Trait Tracker. I think Upgrade Adventure ended up being in an okay spot, except when it was a one-cost meta. That was just too OP. But yeah, also people are talking about Double Down. Double Down wasn't actually intended as a high risk or as this, but yeah, that also qualifies. Hot take: Sugarcraft is better than every econ trait ever. That is a hot take, because Heartsteel is clear Sugarcraft. You're in my chat saying Sugarcraft is better. No, Heartsteel clears that. All right, in our learnings articles for Inkborn Fables, we discussed the complexity ceiling of TFT for new players. Let's just say no one is hitting their head on it anytime soon. In that section, we pointed out that portals are a big ask for new players, requiring them to read all the portal descriptions and make a decision in a short window of time. It's a lot for a first timer, so we went to work on how to replace portals. With Into the Arcane, we have that replacement, so portals are no longer around. But before revealing what it is, we want to take some time to outline our problems with portals, since many players still really like them. There are obvious winner and loser portals in terms of popularity and desirability. The gap between the 5 most popular and the least popular portals is huge. What do you guys think is the least popular portal? I think it's Pot of Gold. Let me pull up Meta TFT. It might actually show. I'm going to guess Pot of Gold, because that shit is boring. Like, who is actually like, oh my god, Pot of Gold? Treasure Chest? Oh, that's not even around anymore. Okay, so the most popular portals. How do I actually look at it real quick? Portal filter. Okay, the most popular portal is Prismatic Party, Scuttle Puddle, and Trainer Golems. Yeah, okay, you guys are degens. Crab Rave, Prismatic Prelude, lose subscription. Scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. Make them cook right here in the middle. Scrolling down, scrolling down. 3-cost champion, 3 champions. Cast Fest, Overachievers, Golden Finale. Oh, it's Champion Duplicator. Wow, that's a pretty big gap too. Like 1.1, 1.2 versus 1.5, 1.5, 1.6. It's a pretty big gap. Portals pose a barrier to entry for new players. I mean, we said that already, but yeah. Trainer Golems. I mean, Trainer Golems is a fun one for a lot of people because you get to play comps that don't exist. But the reason why Champion Dupe sucks is because of bag sizes. Yeah, like if everyone's playing 4 costs and they dupe immediately, you could legitimately be boxed out of finding even one single copy. I think Champion Duplicator is like everything wrong about bag size in a nutshell. Despite the above problems, we still gain a ton of value from portals as they provide game-to-game variants that everyone has enjoyed at one point or another. That is true. I mean, there's a reason why it stuck around, because people loved it from set 9. It was like one of the best parts about set 9 on top of the units. So we want to maintain game-to-game variance, cut down complexity, and enable more desired game-to-game variance. More good portals and less bad ones. Okay. With Into the Arcane, we'll have 10 different opening options, each tied to a specific and important character in the set. Here's a loose breakdown of who you will encounter, what effect they'll have in the game, and how often you may see them. Okay, so we're just doing encounters on stage 1 then. No, we're not doing portals. We did it. Who missed encounters? Who missed encounters? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. We brought back encounters, you guys. We did it. Your complaints and feedback. We did it. No opening encounter game. 40%. I mean, that to many people, that was like their favorite encounter. No encounter. Jinx, Crab Rave game. 5% Scuttle Puddle and 5% Crab Rave. So 10% of the time, we're getting Scuttle Puddle. Wandering Trainer, 3%. So I have to play 33 games to play Wandering Trainer 1 time. So if you play like 500 games, you're gonna play it 15 times. That's like, isn't that a little too few? Heimerdinger or Echo, Prismatic game. Prismatic Augment Opener or Prismatic Augment Finisher or all Prismatic Augments. So that's 10%. So 10%, 10%, 3%, 40 plus 20 plus 3. That's 63%. The list goes on for all gold augments, loose subscription, and more surprises we'll share later. But these, okay, got it. You should paint a picture of the new system, so they're not going to reveal all of it. We specifically only kept the high popularity portal effect with these. We're focused on most games being a relatively normal experience. Even prismatic games count as normal since they can happen as is. But the occasional exciting thing we know players are like are still there. Read Wandering Trainer and Crab Brave. All the mid to less popular options are gone. Let us know which ones you're most excited about and who you think will represent each effect. I think I can get behind this. I think this is like 40% is gonna be a little bit boring. I like the thing about 40% is like you're gonna feel like the opening encounter is like nothing happening because you're gonna see like random sentence, no encounter. I think that gets kind of that's a little boring. I don't know. Some people are like, I like that in chat. I feel like that's. I'm not trying to fall asleep here. I'm trying to jump into the world of Arcane. And TFT is a game where I feel like variance is what makes it interesting. Do you guys want an example? Callista. Do you know why Callista is so frustrating? Because it's the same thing every game. You pick the same augments, you roll for the same units, you build the same items, and it doesn't matter what condition you have. You just played it. That is an example of no variance. And you guys are like, yeah, no variance. And obviously that's an extreme example because that was also a design problem and a balance issue. But like part of it is that you guys want more variance than you think you do. Reroll versus Fast 8. First and foremost, it's still our goal that champions of all costs have items to win the games. There needs to be successful costs where you reroll a 1 cost round 3-1 to 3-3, then power level and build around their mixed traits. The same is true for 2 and 3 costs. However, there also needs to be strategies that involve going to levels 8 and 9, playing around 4 and 5 costs. It's important for all these playstyles to be viable when executed well. One of the things that changed, though, is how quickly people can see reroll chance come online. It was possible to see a 3-star 2 cost on 2-1 to 3-2, right, because of the polymorph, and 3-star 3 costs sometimes can come online before 4-1. With how early these 3-star 3 costs can come online, they can't be so close to power to 2-star 5 costs as our current framework has them. We'll likely be adjusting power frameworks with time availability in mind. Balance will be tight to ensure both can be successful, but we need to ensure that payoff for 2-star 5 costs is worth it. But part of it is like the gap between a 5 cost 1-star versus 2-star is huge, and I guess rightfully so because you want it to be. But like part of it feels like some 5 costs are just like utterly useless because if the reroll meta is there, like you're not going to be playing around them unless they're like a capstone to a bunch of comps. But it's not just 5 costs; it's the same with 4 costs as well, right? Like the biggest example is Varus. Varus is like so bad at 1-star, but he's actually kind of respectable at 2-star, except he's still a little bit undertuned for his comp because they nerfed him so much. But yeah, late game champ should be the peak of comps, and lane the online only to falter is not a great experience. Agreed. Also, isn't this what they said last set? Like it was possible to see a 3-star 2 cost like too early. I think I remember this sentence specifically. They said this in the dev learnings article in set 11. I think that's exactly what they said because like encounters was letting them like 3-star their 2 costs and stuff. So all I'm gonna say is that I think that we're understanding that it's hard to balance TFT. We're understanding that like these things take time to iron out, especially when designing a game as complex as TFT. But I think part of the frustration, I think a lot of TFT players' frustrations with a lot of systems and balances and designs is because it feels like we make the same mistakes. And I think that's where I think people's tolerance is getting lower, especially from really engaged players like streamers and pro players. I think for them, they feel like we're making the same mistakes. Like if you make mistake, and it's not like you can't make a mistake more than once, but it's like, but you know, after a certain amount of times, I think people lose their, like, you know, Ramblin' in chat, for example, posted a complaint thread about TFT and talked about how, you know, a lot of this problems that she's keep popping up. Actually, that's not what he was talking about exactly. He was more advocating for other things. But I think to kind of summarize a lot of those feelings and sentiment is that we can't be making the same mistakes over and over and over. So, I mean, that being said, set 13, best set of all time. Let's wrap this up with Talker's Trials. Our first experimental PvE game mode, Talker's Trials, collected a staggering 13 million hours of total gameplay of its first 20 days. Okay, I don't know how to quantify that in my head, but that sounds like a lot. We're still talking about what this means long term, but for now, we're thinking about Talker's Trials' role in our next set. Talker's Trials will return as an onboarding mode for our new set, Into the Arcane. Like, 13 million hours is a lot, but like, if TFT has like X amount of million players and they all play for like 5 minutes, isn't that like, okay, actually, I don't know. I don't know the numbers, but that sounds like a lot. Like many of our players, we see a lot of value in a TFT PV mode, so we're shifting our focus to Talker's Trials during the Arcane to be primarily an onboarding tool to learn the new set. Whether you're a new player or just a player who wants to get familiar with the set in a lower stress environment. That is true. You could use it for like sandboxing, I guess, on certain champions, or at least understanding things. Talker's Trials return mostly during Into the Arcane, but as a normal mode only, no chaos. We're doing this for several reasons. First, we see the more accessible normal mode as an important learning tool for players new to TFT. The lack of a timer allows players to sit with the complexity of TFT, take their time to learn every aspect and read every tooltip. Doubtful, but the time is there. We hope that you're able to catch up your perspective. Double up partner on the new set of Tactician Trials return. Oh, double up Talker's Trials. And are excited to share our conversation about PvE's future in TFT once they're a more developed spot. Ah, that was a long one. If you made it this far, color me impressed. These are always packed with nuance and complex details, so thanks for reading this much, as you have likely contributed to TFT with your feedback. We've got ideas aglow underfoot for our next set, so I've got to run. But until next time, take it easy. All right. Another long banger from Riot Mortdog. I mean, I appreciate this. Guys, it can't be understated. This type of transparency is really, 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 really hard to find. And I know that it's like hard to take it. It's hard to appreciate it when when they're making mistakes or they're saying things that we don't agree with and you want to meme it. But I think that we have to continue to appreciate it. It could be something as simple as Mortdog quits next week and we just stop getting this straight up because the new design director doesn't want to get memed on and has developed a bad mental health situation with players. Like we should really be appreciative of it every single time it happens. I know it's said almost ad nauseum at this point, but that's what gratitude is. So gratitude isn't just something you do once and then move on. In my opinion, it's like a muscle you have to flex regularly. So thank you. All right, a lot of things we learned on. I think overall set 12 ended up being an okay / pretty like a decent set. I think the mechanic was good, and I had fun with the units. But overall, I feel like the set had a lot more potential, and I think they owned up to most of everything for the most part. All right, on to set 13.